Five lessons I learned about money that made me financially empowered before I turned 20. I'm Inioluwa and I'm 21-year-old creative, and over the past 5 years, I've been building a life of income, of impact, of influence. And while at that, I've also helped inspire, educate, and empower other young persons to see these possibilities and even turn them to realities. And so, if you are new to this channel and you're a young person, this is the place you want to be, right? In this video, I'm going to be sharing with you five lessons I learned about money that eventually made me become financially empowered before I turned 20. And if you have teenage siblings or teenage sons or teenage girls, right? If you have any teenager or you know any teenager, this is the video that you would want to share with them, because as someone that has helped educate, inspire, and empower a lot of young persons, especially teenagers, there are a lot of things that I'm going to be sharing in this video that you would want them to hear. Five lessons I learned about money before I turned 20 that helped me become financially empowered before I turned 20. The first one I have here is: no one is too young to make money. No one, absolutely no one is too young to make money. And this is one lesson I learned from myself, right? This is one lesson I learned by experience. I started out learning graphic design when I was 16. I had my first experience with business, buying and selling, personally when I was 11. And mind you, I came from the village, right? I came from the village. So I do not come from a rich family, right? I'm from a comfortable family, but then we are not rich, right? So I mean, I'm like I said, I'm from the village, right? So not like I have like rich parents, but then right from the age of 11, I had begun to understand what it means to do business, right? I mean, that's another story entirely. If you're interested in me talking about that, you can just let me know in the comment section. But then I began to ask myself the question: how can I really make money legally when I was 15? Now, it doesn't mean that I was making money illegally when I was 11. It's just that I did not still understand what business was. Of course, I did business, I made like 10 era or something, right? I just did basic buying and selling. But then I started asking myself the real question: how can I really make money legally? This was when I was 15, and 16, I found my answer, right? And from that age 16, it has just been up, up. From there, 17, I got my first laptop, changed my phone by myself. 18, I started earning a lot more, and then it has just been up and up from there, right? But then I started making money when I was 16. I started really making money when I was 16. Um I earned my first six figures when I was 17. This was like 4 months after I turned 17, anyways. This was in 2021, right? But then the point is, you are not too young to make money. If you are a young person, if you are 15, 16, hearing me or watching this video right now, you are not too young to make money. This is like a mindset shift. You need to first understand this, acknowledge it, believe it, before it will not be easy for you to substantiate it, right? So you are not too young to make money. No one is too young to make money. This is the number one lesson I learned that helped me become financially empowered before I turned 20. The second lesson I learned here is: money is a commodity and can be bought with value. Money is a commodity. This is one lesson I also learned, and I'm happy I learned very early. When I say money is a commodity, what I'm trying to say is that money can be bought. Just like you take money to the market, or you take money to that mall, or you take money to that store and then you give them money, and then in return you take, let's say, a bag of rice or some beverages or whatever, maybe a phone. Maybe you go to a gadget store and then you give them money, and then in return you collect a phone. Just like that thing you buy with money is a commodity, money itself is a commodity. And this is something you need to understand if you will be able to earn money, because this lesson makes you begin to see money as something that you have to earn. Because the real money, the kind of money you want, the kind of money that can change your life, is the money you will have to earn, right? Even if someone dash you money, even if, let's say, someone just randomly gives you money or you win a giveaway, somehow you still have to earn it. And that doesn't always happen, right? The Everyone cannot win a giveaway. In fact, usually it is usually few people, right? Just few people that we have the opportunity to win a money that can change their life through a giveaway, right? Just few people. And there is every possibility that you will not be part of that person, which means that you will have to work to earn your money, right? And so understanding this and learning this particular lesson that I learned will help you begin to change your approach to money. Because when you begin to see money as a commodity, the next question will now be, how can I buy money? If money is a commodity, right, how then can I buy money? And that is where value comes in, because value is the currency you use to buy money. So even the money that you are looking for, it's a money that can be bought. I currently work for a number of clients. I have like a full-time job currently, and then I offer my value to them. And in return, at the end of the month, they pay me money, right? A money that I would consider a lot of it, right? So I am offering them value, and then I am buying, technically I'm buying money in return for the value I'm offering them, right? So the value I'm offering them is like a currency. I'm offering them value, they are giving me money in return. Just like the same way I will take that money now and then I'll go and use it to buy something in the market. That is the same way I bought that money through my value. So what this will do is that it will help you begin to ask the right question. Your question will move from how can I make money or how can I get money? It will switch to what value can I offer in return for money? And when you begin to ask yourself this question and you get answer to this question, that is going to be the beginning of your financial empowerment, to be very honest. Because now it forces your brain to start thinking in the direction of value, right? Because money follows value. I mean, money does not just follow value. There are other things, there are other variables that you need to consider, because your value also has to be sellable and you need to be able to sell your value, right? But then that is another subject entirely. But then the beginning of everything is even understanding the fact that value is that currency that can be used to buy money. When you understand this, you start asking the right questions. And when you start asking the right questions, you are ready to start getting the right answers and the right results, right? So this is the second lesson I learned before I turned 20, right? And this changed my life practically, changed my finances. The third lesson I have here with me is be ready to give money to make money. Be ready to give money to make money. This is another lesson that I never struggled to learn. In fact, the first time I learned design, right? Because my first encounter um with digital skill was graphic design, and I was 16. This was in February of 2021, right? So I had to pay 1,000 naira, and this was the last 1,000 naira with me. This was the last 1,000 naira I had. And how did I even get this 1,000 naira? It was my sister who sent the money to me to buy belt. So this was the money I was supposed to use to buy belt. But then I came across an advert, a sponsored advert on Facebook, right? And the class was 1,000 naira. And so I had like two options. Either I just swipe up as usual and use the money to go buy belt, or I spend the 1,000 naira to pay for this class, and I might be forced to continue using my tattered belt. I think I still had belt at the time, right? But then I chose the later. I paid for that class, and that class potentially changed my life because that was the beginning of the journey that has led me here. That was practically the beginning of my journey online and my journey to making money online. Before then, I'd make like a few thousand here and there, but that was the beginning of the journey that has led here, right? So, but then the point here is I spent 1,000 naira to register for that class, and that was not the end. That was not the end of the money I spent. Eventually, I would eventually go on to spending multiple six figures in total to learn, right? Up to January this year. This is 2026. Today is I'm recording this video on 21st March 2026. Right, up to last month, which was February, I still spent money. I spent, I think, 50,000 naira on a particular course that I I believe would make me money, right? I've spent a lot of money. I can't begin to count, right? I've spent a whole lot of money at every single point in time to learn things that to build my skill, right? To improve my skill. I've spent a lot of money on courses, on classes, on tutorials, on webinars, on different things, on tools, on a lot of things, right? And that is one of the things that helped me to become financially empowered before I turned 20, because I was willing to spend money to make money. Now, I'm not saying just spend money randomly or don't do your, or just be spending money anyhow. That is not the point. My point is when you find an opportunity that you know can potentially make you money, be willing to spend money, right? Don't, I see a lot of things online these days, right? Especially that I've come across posts like this a lot of time that no one who is making money will really teach you how they make their money. That is not true. If that is the case, then maybe a lot of us that have money, right, will not have money. Now, I am not rich yet, right? I'm not rich yet, but the kind of I have more than two jobs that pay me in dollars, right? And then I those dollars sum up to multiple seven figures. Hmm? So, and I've been able to make a lot of it, right, over these past 5 years that I've been working, basically, right? So, but then the thing is, if no one taught me, I would not be here. If I did not get pay for tutorials, I would not be here. If I did not take advantage of opportunities, the second six figures I would make online, I had to pay, I think, 3,000 naira um to my coach. Then I had a particular coach. Then I had to pay him 3,000 naira so that I will have access to the material that eventually would help me make 100,000 naira in 3 weeks. This was in 2022. This was in around March, February 2022. Right. So if I did, what if I did not spend that 3,000 naira? The point is, you use money to make money, and this is something you need to understand. Um, the fourth lesson that I learned about money that made me financially empowered before I turned 20 is how you manage your first 100K will determine whether you will make the next and how soon you will make the next. How you manage your first 100K will determine whether you will make the next one and how soon you will make the next one. Now, this is not just about 100K, to be very honest. This is also about 10K. How you make your first 10K will determine whether you will make the next 10K and how soon you will make the next 10K. And I have a story to this. I made my first seven figure, six figures. When we say six figures, I'm talking 100K um to 900K basically. So I made my first 100K when I was 17 in a month, right? And this was in 2021. I turned 17. I was 16 as of February 2021, and then I turned 17 in July. So as at October, I made my first six figures online in a month. And how after I made the money, I remember saving some of the money. I used part of the money to pay for three classes, I think three courses, right? I paid for a 3D avatar builder course, right? So a 3D animation course, low budget animation, anyways. I paid for a graphic design training, right? Then I paid for a video editing training. Then I used part of the money to buy a guitar, right? So I still have the guitar. I bought a guitar. Then I used part of the money. I saved part of the money. Now, then the other part, I think I spent some part of the money too, right? Basically, this is like the sum of I spend the money. Now, the money I saved. Now, take note that I bought three courses. Those courses contribute a lot to my growth. Like they help me really grow in my skill. Now, I saved part of the money. Remember, now it was this part of the money that I used to pay that my coach I said I paid I think 3K to in February of 2022. So all of these things I said when I made the first six figures and then I bought courses, everything happened between October, November, December of 2021. I saved part of the money and then I dropped out from Uniben. That is another story and story entirely. But then when I dropped out, I had to I could not go back home. So I went back home and then 1 month after I traveled to Ilorin. Now it was when I traveled to Ilorin. Part of the things I depended on during that my travel was the money I saved. Apart from that, when the opportunity came from that my coach at the time that I had to pay like 3,000 naira to have access to some resources, which I eventually sold to make my second six figures, right, in like 3 weeks. I had to pay 3,000 naira. Now, how did I get the 3,000 naira to pay? I got it from the money I saved from the first 100K I made back in October 2021. So can you see the chain? And if I go on, you will eventually realize that when I made the 100K I made in March 2022 again, I leverage on that money. I use part of that money to get some courses. There's one notable course I can remember that I used part of the money to buy. That course opened my eyes to design, like proper designs, right? So, but how did I get the money to pay for that course? It was from the second six figures I made. And then I eventually spent part of the money again in getting other things. And it has just been compounding from then till now. Understand that the money you are looking for, many times it will come through the law of compounding, right? The law of compounding. It will eventually compound. The quality I have, the quality of life I have right now compounded from when I was 16. So I'm 21 now, but then the quality of life I have right now, the results I have right now, the quality of results I have right now, the kind of results I have right now, it's not just something that happened now. They've been compounding based on my decisions, right, over the years. So understand that you can't just make your first 10K and then you go and spend it on buying a clothes or buying a shoe. I'm not saying don't spend on yourself, right? I think one of the things that helped me early was because I'm not used to spending on myself. So I'm not that guy that will make money and then it's just now that I'm beginning to change that. I'm beginning to get some things for myself. But then I'm not really used to buying stuff for myself. So it was easy for me to save the money. But then whether it's easy for you or not, or I don't know, just ensure that the money you are making, you don't just squander the money, you don't just spend them on frivolities, on liabilities. No, think like a businessman. You use money to make money. This just corroborates the points, the third lesson that I mentioned, that you use money to make money, right? It's only the money you have that used to make money. So when the money start coming in little by little, be smart enough to leverage on the money you have right now to make your next big money. The last lesson I have here is money does something to your confidence. This is like the fifth lesson I learned. Now, there are more lessons, but I just want to limit them to these five. The fifth is money does something to your confidence, how you see life and how you approach people. This is very true, right? Now, I am not saying I, I am not speaking for people that make some money and then they become rude and all of that. No, I'm saying that how you carry yourself, there's money does something to your confidence. It does something to how you carry yourself. It does something to how you see life. It does something to how you see people, right? Not in a bad way, but in a good way, right? It just helps to carry yourself better. I don't know how to properly explain it, but then it just increases your confidence, right? Because you eventually realize that a lot of problems that we face as humans is a problem that can be solved with money. And so when you have the solution to some of the problems that you face, right? Or some of the problem that you potentially face, you eventually realize that it just makes you more confident because now you are approaching life differently. You are no longer approaching life from a point of fear, right? That okay, hey, this and this and this. No, like when you have the money to, so when you have money to solve like a lot of problems, you no longer live life out of fear. You live life with confidence. You carry yourself better, right? Eventually, too, with the money you make, you can use it to buy like clothes to make you look better, buy stuffs to make you look better, buy shoes, which also improves your confidence. Dressing improves your confidence, right? And so you need money to also be able to invest well in your dressing. So eventually you realize that everything is connected. Well, these are the five lessons that money taught me before 20 that made me become financially empowered before I turned 20. And let me know which of the lessons stood out for you. I'm looking forward to seeing your comments, to reading from you, and I would love to know your thoughts, right? And I will see you in the next video. Meanwhile, if you have not subscribed, please hit the subscribe button, and then you can also follow me on all of my social media platforms, my TikTok, my Instagram, my X. Do what to follow me. I will see you in the next video.